On March 11, 2026, open-source satellite trackers detected a large vessel running at high speed through the South China Sea. It was USS Tripoli LHA-7, the big-deck amphibious warship, heading to the Middle East as the Iran war entered its third week. Not a carrier, not a destroyer, an amphibious assault ship, the one most analysts had dismissed as a catastrophic design failure. On her flight deck, 20 F-35B stealth fighters. In her hull, 2,200 Marines. Destination, the most dangerous waterway on Earth. Here is why that decision is strange. Two carrier strike groups already hold the perimeter from opposite ends of the region. USS Abraham Lincoln commands from the Arabian Sea. USS Gerald R. Ford locks down the Red Sea. From the outside, the siege looks complete, but the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. So look at what complete actually means when you run the real numbers. The strait has been effectively closed for almost 4 weeks, throwing global oil markets into chaos with no clear end in sight. Nearly 15 million barrels per day of crude, plus another 4.5 million barrels of refined fuels, are effectively stranded in the Gulf. Every day the strait stays closed, the world bleeds. Iran did not close it with a fleet. Iran closed it with fear. U.S. Navy officials described the Strait of Hormuz as an Iranian kill box, a tactically complex environment with enormous risks. Iran's unconventional methods, cheap drones, sea mines, and shore-based missile batteries, make securing the strait militarily extremely difficult. Here's the brutal arithmetic. You do not need to sink a convoy to close a strait. You need one burning hull. One tanker on fire is enough to keep every insurer on the planet from writing the next transit policy. That is it. The strait does not close by force alone. It closes by fear. And fear only needs one example to become permanent. That paradox sits at the center of this war. Two carriers solved 90% of the problem, but the strait demands 100%. The distance between 90 and 100 is a supertanker in flames. So why send a ship most analysts dismissed as a mistake? What can 2,200 Marines do that 100,000 sailors cannot? To answer that, we must understand exactly what the Pentagon sent. When the Navy designed the America-class ship, it made a decision that drew immediate fire from Congress and Marine Corps generals alike. It removed the well deck entirely from the blueprint. The well deck is the ballast-flooded chamber at the stern of every amphibious ship since World War II. It is how you deploy landing craft, how you launch hovercraft, how Marines have reached every contested beach since Normandy. It is the platform's identity. Critics called it an amphibious ship that forgot how to be amphibious. The backlash was fierce enough to force Congress to act. The next ship in the class, USS Bougainville LHA-8, will include the well deck, restoring the surface connector capability critics demanded. USS America and USS Tripoli were written off as the two Flight Zero ships that got it wrong. But the Navy understood something deeper. Removing the well deck freed up space for a dramatically enlarged aviation hangar, increased JP-5 jet fuel storage, and enhanced command and control facilities. Aviation fuel storage was significantly increased to approximately 1.6 million gallons of JP-5, supporting extended air wing operations without the constraints of a well deck. Tripoli did not lose the ability to put Marines ashore. She changed how, from the sea surface to the air entirely. On her maiden deployment in 2022, Tripoli took on 20 F-35Bs to test the revolutionary Lightning carrier concept for the first time. 20 stealth fighters. On a $3.5 billion ship. Nearly half the air wing of a $13 billion supercarrier on a dismissed hull. The America-class ships were deliberately designed to serve as small aircraft carriers rather than traditional amphibious assault ships from the very beginning. The ship they called a mistake turned out to be the most dangerous pocket carrier currently afloat. Now here is why that matters. Carriers are too valuable to risk inside the Persian Gulf. That 540 nautical mile bathtub Iran spent 40 years converting into a kill box. Tripoli displaces 45,000 tons. She is not irreplaceable the way Ford or Lincoln are. That difference defines everything in the Pentagon's risk calculus. Losing Tripoli is painful. Losing a carrier is catastrophic. Tripoli is expendable enough to get close and powerful enough to matter. To understand why Tripoli matters, you must first understand what the kill box actually is. It is a geometry problem Iran mastered. The strait is extraordinarily narrow, with just 20 miles separating Iran from Oman, making it easy to identify and target any transiting vessel. Despite nearly 2 weeks of airstrikes, the IRGC's main small craft fleet has largely remained intact, according to analysts at the Washington Institute. Iran still retains more than 80% of its small boats and mine layers and could feasibly lay hundreds of mines in the waterway. The 16 mine layers the U.S. destroyed in March were a fraction of the available Iranian force. The capability did not disappear. It dispersed. Iran's coastal areas offer ideal positions for launching anti-ship missiles from close range, leaving defending vessels very little time to respond. These are not missiles launched from ships. They come from mountain tunnels and hardened positions no air campaign can fully neutralize in weeks. In 1988, USS Samuel B. Roberts struck an Iranian mine. The explosion broke the ship's keel, flooded the engine room, and injured more than 60 sailors. That was one mine. In 1988, before drones, before ballistic missiles, before Shahed systems launched from hundreds of miles inland. The math is worse now. General Dan Kane acknowledged Iran still has the capability to harm friendly forces and commercial shipping, saying the military's work on this effort continues. This is the 10% that two carrier strike groups cannot solve from 500 nautical miles away. This is precisely what Tripoli was sent to fix. Nobody knows exactly how CENTCOM will employ USS Tripoli. The orders are classified, but the capability Tripoli brings is not classified. Tripoli introduces 3 dimensions that did not exist at Hormuz before she sailed. Each one targets a different piece of Iran's remaining 10%. The first is persistent air presence inside the strait itself. An F-35B launching from Lincoln burns 2 hours of fuel just reaching the fight. That leaves minutes of actual patrol time over the shipping lanes before the jet must turn back. 3 sorties per day still leaves dangerous gaps. At 100 nautical miles instead of 500, transit time collapses to 13 minutes each way. Time on station triples. Patrol gaps shrink to minutes. Tripoli allows Marines to support air operations from a mobile base that does not rely on fixed land positions far from the strait. Those minutes are the difference between an Iranian drone finding a tanker first or an F-35B finding the drone first. Physics decides the winner. The second capability is vertical envelopment of fortified islands. 3 Iranian-held islands sit directly inside the shipping corridor, armed with anti-ship missile batteries. Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, and Lesser Tumb carry coastal radar, artillery, and IRGC garrisons. No air patrol neutralizes a launcher buried in reinforced concrete. A conventional amphibious ship would push landing craft through mined water to reach those islands. Tripoli does not operate that way at all. Tripoli's embarked air wing includes MV-22B Ospreys and helicopters purpose-built for troop insertion across contested terrain without surface exposure. Marines fly over the minefields entirely. They do not touch the water Iran spent 4 decades preparing to deny to American forces. The third dimension is the one Iran built absolutely no defense against. It has never appeared in Iran's coastal defense calculations, until now. Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations sees Marines fly ashore to establish temporary bases with HIMARS launchers, radar arrays, and forward arming and refueling points. HIMARS firing ATACMS at 162 nautical miles can engage any fast attack craft, submarine, or mine-laying vessel entering the shipping corridor from shore. Anti-ship firepower from land. A kill zone spanning the full width of the strait, operated by a force that cannot be sunk. Stack all 3 capabilities together and something emerges that Iran has never faced and has no existing playbook to counter or survive. Iran is already preparing for potential U.S. amphibious landings, moving personnel to Karg Island, and installing additional coastal defenses including sea mines. That movement is the tell. Iran is reacting now, not dictating. The initiative has already shifted before Tripoli fires a single round. For 40 years, Iran only prepared to counter one variable: American steel on the waterline. They mastered that equation with extraordinary precision and patience. Every dollar spent, every doctrine written, every fortification built, all of it designed to make the Gulf too expensive for ships to enter. The first weeks of Operation Epic Fury added a threat from the sky. Carrier air wings dismantled air defenses and crippled military infrastructure across Iran. But aircraft fly sorties and return to carriers. They do not stay. Presence requires a body on the ground, and carriers cannot provide that. When Tripoli reaches full operational posture, the equation gains a threat from the ground. Marines can appear on any island, any coastline, any allied position, and Marines stay. That is the dimension Iran spent 40 years and billions of dollars never thinking to defend against. It does not exist in their playbook. Defend the islands against Marine raids, and the coastline lies open to EABO. Fortify the coastline, and the islands fall to vertical assault. Disperse across all positions, and there is not enough force left at any single point to stop anything that Tripoli brings to bear. 3 responses, 3 failures. The equation has no correct answer because Iran solved the wrong variable for 4 decades straight. USS Boxer left San Diego on March 18th carrying roughly 2,500 Marines from the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, a second amphibious ready group now inbound. The pressure is not arriving from one direction. It is building from every direction simultaneously, faster than Iran can reposition its remaining defenses. Return to the original paradox. The most powerful navy in human history solved 90% of the problem with carrier air power and naval siege. Hormuz does not grade on a curve. 1 mine, 1 missile, 1 tanker burning in the corridor shuts the insurance market permanently. The Navy did not solve the last 10% by sending more ships into the kill box. They sent a force built for the ground. Tripoli's arrival signals readiness, telling allies America remains committed while informing Iran that further escalation now carries immediate and unavoidable consequences on the ground. Iran built the perfect equation for one variable: American steel on the waterline. They solved it completely. They just solved it for the wrong variable. Carriers besiege from the outside, Marines solve from the inside, and the ship Congress complained about, the ship analysts dismissed, the ship built without a well deck. It turned out to be the one answer nobody saw coming. 844 feet of steel, 20 stealth fighters, 2,200 Marines who arrived from the sky. Dismissed.